بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So, Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us an opportunity for Laylatul Bara'ah that will be coming up in a few days' time, and then we have the Ramadan that's coming up. So I know this is going to be nobody's first Ramadan, so it kind of sounds a bit like what they call tahsilul hasil to speak about Ramadan. I sometimes feel like you're just playing the same tune again and you get bored of it, right? Because this is not our for anybody here, is it going to be their first Ramadan this year? I mean, many people are veterans in Ramadan. They've done at least 10 Ramadans before this, or maybe 20. So what can I tell you that's going to be new? So وَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَى تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. So that's what the main thing. It always helps the speaker and the listeners to be reminded. So more about practical tips. The main thing about Ramadan is that I think if we were to sum it up, the thing that amazes me most about Ramadan and inspires is that it's a concentrated time, and we just don't understand the level of concentration and intensity in every moment of Ramadan that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed in it as compared to any other time. And one hadith that underscores this very, very simply is that if somebody misses a fast of Ramadan, for no valid reason, maybe they've got a football match that day, they've got a client's meeting that day, or whatever the case is, so they missed Ramadan. They've not broken it, but they just missed it. And then after that, if they were to, which is wrong, for no valid reason, you can't just not fast in Ramadan, it's an obligation to fast. And then they felt really bad after Ramadan, so they fasted the whole year, or maybe another interpretation, they fasted the rest of their life outside of Ramadan. They wouldn't be able to catch up to the reward they missed of that 1 day of misfast. That's why Imam Ahmad Sarhindi rahimahullah, even what he says is that every moment of Ramadan has such diluted, concentrated reward being offered there of thawab, reward, blessing, barakah, everything, acceptance of dua, name it, everything, that you just don't want to squander that moment. So if you think like that through the month of Ramadan, you'll get more out of it, so that you don't waste any time at all. There is no time to waste. And the beautiful thing is that Allah has given us multiple ways of closeness and qurbat. Qurbat are multiple, which means things that make you close to Allah. So you can't always be reading Quran. You might just not feel like it, and you don't want to read Quran when you don't feel like it, because the hadith mentions that when your heart is not into it, stop. You can just sit and ruminate over your life and do muraqabah. You could do salawat on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if that's not the case, then you can just train yourself to just breathe the name of Allah. It's so easy, and it's actually very comforting. What they call the pas and fast, which basically means that you synchronize the taking of the name of Allah, or the calling of the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with your breath. Allahu. So you're pulling in by saying Allahu. None of your tongue is needed in that. It's just Allahu. Well, your tongue is needed, but your lips aren't needed in that. So that's very comforting. You can just be relaxing. You just want to relax. You've done verbally whatever. Now you don't want to do that. You don't want to stand up and pray. Just Allahu, Allahu, Allahu. You're going to work on the bus. Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. Whatever it is. So there's multiple things. You just don't want to waste your time in there. But the best way to do it is, what I found is that I try to start 2 months in advance, but sometimes a bit too much. So when they say that, there's 2 months, 60 days left for Ramadan, 100 days left for Ramadan, that kind of, it's kind of like, don't tell me. But then on the other hand, it's beneficial to know, because the way to get the most out of Ramadan is to make sure that you don't waste your time in Ramadan, which means that anything that you have to do, like the major projects you have, there's certain repair work, certain things you have to get done and finished, get them done before Ramadan. All of these tiresome, toilsome tasks that you have, which are going to bother you in Ramadan, because psychologically they're on your head. Everybody, I'm sure, has a list of things that they need to get done, whether that be cleaning up your room, or arranging your table, or sorting out a phone bill, or signing up for a new contract, or a project at work or school or homework or whatever. Get it done now. Make a list and then start getting it done and tick it off so you get your dopamine rush, right? And you feel really good about it. And then mashallah, when you enter Ramadan, first day running. Right? Then number 2, what we should have is we want to improve on last year and the previous year. So as I said, you've done many Ramadans before, right? How did you get this Ramadan better than last one? Are you already doing the ultimate Ramadan? So you can't do any better? MashaAllah, for the last 2-3 years, I've been doing this ultimate version of Ramadan. I can't do any better. It's like, wow, you know, there's nothing I can improve on there. If you're doing that, khalas, carry on. But if you're not doing that, then let's take heed of that and then plan that, okay, last year I gave this much sadaqah. This year I'm going to give this much more. Last year I did this much Quran. This year I'm going to do this much more. And when it comes to Quran, Ramadan is a month of the Quran, and the way our pious predecessors, yes, some focused on reading, but others focused on comprehension, and some even focused on a new aspect of the Quran every year. So this year you read a certain tafsir, next year you adopt another tafsir, and so on. Or you can focus on a science of the Quran. So Mawlana Anwar Shah Kashmiri rahmatullahi alayhi, he used to spend, at least in the, I don't know how many Ramadans he did this, but he used to spend his Ramadan just, can you imagine how refined he was about this? How, at what stage he'd reached, that he spent that Ramadan in just focusing on the rhetoric of the Quran, the balagha of the Quran. So he would do 1 juz a day, just focusing on what the balagha of the Quran is. That's very nuanced and refined. So, you know, he'd probably done all of his fiqh of the Quran and ahkam of the Quran and all of the others, and now he's talking about the balagha. So we've got many, inshaAllah, we've got many years ahead of us. So that's what I started, when I figured this out about 3 years ago, so that's what I'm trying to do, to look at a different aspect of the Quran every year. So adopt whatever it is. That could be a different tafsir that you do, or whatever it is, so that you focus on that about it has to be something related to Quran. Another thing is put some qadha prayers in. If you're doing your qadha prayers, and you should be, and if you're not, then start. Use that in Ramadan. So you're going to probably do tahajjud, right? You don't want to miss a single tahajjud this Ramadan. And it's easy to do so. So that should be one of your to-do list for sure. Tahajjud every day. You have to organize your time to get it right. And if you can get your family to kind of contribute to that, so get it in the house. Everybody has to do at least 2 rakats of tahajjud and some dua. When people do things together, you get your mum on board, and you get your father on board, your brothers and sisters on board, it's just easier. Because we're social creatures when everybody else is doing it, and you can be a force for change. Right? Just after, because you might disturb him. Right? So, planning. When you go into Turkey and you just decide to go and you're so busy, you haven't checked it in, you just suddenly end up in Turkey and all you got is a hotel, you're going to have to try to figure out what to visit, what not to visit, right? That's going to take a day or two. But if you've got it all organized, you get there the first day, efficiently you just start your trip. That's the same thing with Ramadan. Have it all scheduled of what you want to achieve, and have it broken down to per day and the timings of the day. In Ramadan, your schedule needs to be strict. Nothing besides that. That's the way many of our akabir used to be. They would meet people less. They would just focus because there's no time to waste. So you need to know what you're going to be doing every month of Ramadan, every day of Ramadan, every hour of Ramadan, right? And it's not difficult. You can easily do 15 juz of the Quran a day. You do 2 juz after Taraweeh. You do 2 juz, I mean if you're a hafiz, especially if you're a hafiz, you can easily do it. 2 juz after Taraweeh, 2 juz at tahajjud time, including in tahajjud, after tahajjud, whatever. Don't go to sleep until you do 2. Wake up in the morning, I mean if you're working you can do less, but if you're not working, wake up in the morning, do 4 juz. How many is that? 8. 2 juz going and coming from Asr. How many is that? That's 10. 2 more juz, at least 2 more juz Asr time, coming from Asr around that time. How many is that? 12. And then after Maghrib you can do 2 juz. And then in Taraweeh you got another 2. So about 14 juz. And you can do more than that. That's just minimum. So it's not difficult if you plan your time. Of course for a non-hafiz you might not be able to do that much unless you're good at reading. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it. Make this Ramadan better than any Ramadan before it. That should be our goal. Oh Allah, make this Ramadan better. Make us closer to you, Ya Allah, than we've ever been before. But keep us close afterwards as well. So may Allah bless us during this time, so that we can get a lot of chores and responsibilities out of the way, so that in Ramadan we're clean and ready to focus on Ramadan and take advantage of it. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen.